The Battle of Antietam, fought on September 17, 1862 near Sharpsburg, Maryland, was a pivotal moment in American history. Known as the Battle of Sharpsburg in the South, it was part of the Maryland Campaign during the American Civil War. It stands as the single bloodiest day in American history, with over 23,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or missing. The fields were littered with the bodies of young men who had marched into battle with hopes and dreams only to be met with the brutal reality of war. The Union victory at Antietam ended the Confederate Army's first invasion of the North. This was a significant strategic win for the Union, halting General Robert E. Lee's advance and forcing his army to retreat back to Virginia. This victory provided President Abraham Lincoln the opportunity to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which took effect on January 1, 1863. It declared that all slaves in Confederate-held territory were to be set free, shifting the war aims of the Union from merely preserving the nation to also abolishing slavery. The significance of the Battle of Antietam lies not only in the staggering loss of life, but also in its impact on the course of the Civil War and the future of the United States. It remains a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and a pivotal moment in the fight for freedom and unity. The American Civil War, rooted in deep-seated sectional tensions over slavery, was a defining moment in the nation's history. It was not just a battle over territory, but a profound struggle over the very principles that the United States was founded upon. The war erupted in April 1861 with the first shots fired at Fort Sumter in South Carolina, marking the beginning of a brutal conflict that would last for 4 long years. The Confederate States of America, formed by 11 southern states that seceded from the Union, sought to establish an independent nation where slavery would be protected. The Union, comprising the remaining states, was determined to preserve the nation's unity. President Abraham Lincoln was resolute in his commitment to keeping the country together. The early years of the war saw a series of Confederate victories in the Eastern Theater, primarily due to the military prowess of General Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia. Confident after their successes, the Confederacy, under Lee's command, embarked on a strategic gamble in the late summer of 1862, an invasion of the North. This bold move aimed to deliver a decisive blow to the Union war effort. By taking the fight to the North, the Confederacy hoped to disrupt Union plans and force a negotiated peace. The Confederacy had multiple objectives for this risky campaign. They believed that a successful invasion could turn the tide of the war in their favor. Firstly, they sought to gain recognition and support from European powers, particularly Great Britain and France. Secondly, they hoped to influence the upcoming congressional elections in the North, potentially weakening support for the war. Lastly, they aimed to secure much-needed supplies and demoralize the Union population. The invasion of the North, however, would lead to the single bloodiest day in American history, the Battle of Antietam. This clash would forever alter the course of the Civil War and have lasting implications for the nation. The Battle of Antietam witnessed the clash of 2 prominent generals of the Civil War, George B. McClellan of the Union Army and Robert E. Lee of the Confederate Army. These 2 men, each with their own unique leadership styles and strategic approaches, would come to define the battle. McClellan, known for his meticulous planning, often found himself at odds with the more audacious and risk-taking Lee. George McClellan, nicknamed Little Mac, was a cautious and meticulous commander. His attention to detail earned him the respect of his men. However, McClellan's excessive caution often frustrated President Lincoln and his advisors, who believed his hesitancy allowed the Confederates to gain the upper hand. Robert E. Lee, in contrast, was a daring and aggressive commander. His leadership style was characterized by bold decisions and a willingness to take risks. Lee's strategic brilliance and the tenacity of the Confederate Army posed a formidable challenge to the Union forces. The Battle of Antietam would test the skills and resolve of both commanders. It was a pivotal moment in the Civil War, where the stakes were incredibly high. The clash between these 2 military titans resulted in a tactical draw, but a strategic victory for the Union, forever altering the course of the Civil War. In September 1862, emboldened by recent victories and seeking to capitalize on the North's war weariness, Confederate General Robert E. Lee made the risky decision to invade Maryland. This strategic gamble aimed to achieve several critical objectives for the Confederacy. Maryland, a border state with strong Southern sympathies, held great strategic importance. Its capture would threaten Washington, D.C., the Union capital, potentially crippling the North's morale and political will. Furthermore, a Confederate victory on Northern soil could sway public opinion in the upcoming congressional elections, weakening support for the war effort. Lee also hoped to influence international opinion. European powers, particularly Great Britain and France, were closely observing the war. A decisive Confederate victory on Northern soil could prompt them to recognize the Confederacy and provide much-needed material support. Moreover, the invasion aimed to disrupt Union supply lines and gather vital provisions for the Confederate Army. Maryland's rich farmland offered a tempting prize, as the South's resources were increasingly strained by the war effort. Lee's invasion of Maryland was a high-stakes gamble with potentially significant rewards. However, this audacious move would ultimately lead to the bloodbath at Antietam, forever altering the course of the Civil War and dashing the Confederacy's hopes for international recognition. Following the battle, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on September 22, 1862, which took effect on January 1, 1863. This proclamation freed slaves in Confederate states, changing the war's aims to overtly include the abolition of slavery. It eventually led to the 13th Amendment and allowed black troops to serve in the Union Army. The chance of European support for the South virtually vanished, as the loss at Antietam showed the South's slim chances of victory and Britain's unwillingness to support slavery. The Battle of Antietam remains the bloodiest single day in U.S. history, with nearly 23,000 casualties, more than double the combined casualties of the War of 1812, the Mexican War, and the Spanish-American War. Despite the opportunity, General McClellan failed to chase Lee's retreating forces, missing the best chance to end the war early. Consequently, President Lincoln permanently removed McClellan from command, replacing him with General Ambrose Burnside. This is essential U.S. history. Please like and subscribe for more historical content.